massive crystal throne room of Vorthak Prime stretched out like a dark ocean. Emperor Thalax sat on his golden seat, his 6 eyes glowing with anger. His long claws tapped against the armrest as he read the report in his hands. The sound echoed through the empty hall like drops of water in a cave. "Impossible," he whispered. His voice carried across the room to where General Kale stood waiting. The general's blue skin looked pale in the dim light. He had been the one to bring this disturbing news to his emperor. "Your Majesty, our scouts have confirmed it," General Kale said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "The humans have destroyed the Zelthrian Confederation. All 47 star systems are now under their control." Emperor Thalax stood up from his throne. He was 12 feet tall, and his shadow fell across the floor like a dark cloud. For 300 years, he had ruled the Galactic Empire. No species had ever dared to challenge his power. The Empire controlled over 10,000 worlds, and its fleets could destroy entire solar systems. "Tell me about these humans again," the Emperor commanded. He walked down the steps of his throne, each footstep making a loud sound on the crystal floor. General Kale opened his datapad. The blue light from the screen made his face look worried. "They come from a small solar system called Sol. They only left their homeworld about 200 years ago. At first, they seemed weak and divided. They fought wars among themselves and struggled to build basic spaceships." The Emperor stopped walking. "Then how did they defeat the Zelthrians? That confederation had a fleet of 2,000 ships." "That is what troubles me, Your Majesty," General Kale replied. "Our intelligence was wrong about the humans. They were not weak at all. They were preparing." On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Terra's Revenge. Through the large windows, he could see the remains of the last Zelthrian battleship. Its metal hull was twisted and broken, floating in the darkness of space like a dead whale. "Captain So Young, what is our casualty report?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his dark eyes showed the weight of command. He had been planning this victory for 10 years. Captain So Young checked her screen. She was young for a ship captain, only 35 years old, but she had earned her position through skill in battle. "We lost only 12 ships, Admiral." "The enemy lost everything," Admiral Hyunwoo nodded. The Zelthrian Confederation had been cruel to the human colonies on the border. They had taken human slaves and destroyed peaceful settlements. But this war was about more than revenge. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. "Any word from our spy in the Empire?" he asked. "Commander Jinho reports that the Empire has received news of our victory," Captain So Young replied. "Emperor Thalax is calling for a war council." The Admiral smiled for the first time in days. Everything was going according to plan. For 50 years, humanity had been expanding through the galaxy. They moved slowly and carefully, learning about their enemies. They studied every alien species, every weapon, every tactic. Most importantly, they learned about the Galactic Empire. The Empire thought humans were just another primitive species. They believed their own propaganda about being the strongest force in the galaxy. This was their first mistake, and it would be their last. Back on Vorthak Prime, Emperor Thalax called his war council. The Great Hall filled with his military leaders. There was Fleet Admiral Vextar, whose ships had conquered 100 worlds. There was Admiral Kethmore, who had never lost a battle. There were generals and commodores from every corner of the Empire. "These humans think they can challenge us," the Emperor said. His voice boomed across the hall like thunder. "They destroyed one small confederation, and now they believe they are strong. We will show them the true power of the Empire." Fleet Admiral Vextar stepped forward. He was old and covered with scars from many battles. "Your Majesty, I suggest we send a message to these humans. Demand they surrender immediately. If they refuse, we destroy their homeworld as an example." "No," General Kale said, surprising everyone in the room. "Your Majesty, we should be more careful. We do not know how the humans defeated the Zelthrians so completely. Perhaps we should study them more before we act." Emperor Thalax's eyes glowed brighter with anger. "Are you afraid, General?" "The Empire has 10,000 ships. These humans have a few hundred at most. We could destroy their entire species in a single day." General Kale bowed his head. He knew it was dangerous to argue with the Emperor, but something felt wrong about this situation. In his long military career, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming danger. Meanwhile, in a secret base hidden in an asteroid field, Dr. Yunji worked on humanity's greatest weapon. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her mind was one of the sharpest in human space. For 20 years, She had been developing quantum disruption technology. This weapon could shut down alien shields and communications in seconds. The field tests were successful, she reported to Admiral Hyunwoo through a secure channel. We can disable an entire enemy fleet without them even knowing what hit them. How many ships can we equip with this technology? The Admiral asked. All of them, Dr. Yunji replied with a smile. We have been installing the quantum disruptors for the past 5 years. Every human ship now carries this weapon. Admiral Hyunwoo felt a surge of pride. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had built ships in secret, trained soldiers in hidden bases, and developed weapons that no alien species had ever seen. The galaxy thought humans were weak newcomers, but they were wrong. The Empire's scouts continued to bring disturbing news. Human fleets were moving through space, but they were not attacking randomly. They seemed to have a plan, a strategy that nobody could understand. Some alien governments were already surrendering without a fight, joining the growing human alliance. Emperor Thalax refused to believe the reports. He ordered the Grand Armada to prepare for war. 10,000 ships began moving toward human space, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The Emperor was confident that this show of power would end the human threat forever. But in the depths of space, Admiral Hyunwoo was already 3 steps ahead. He knew the Empire would come with everything they had. He was counting on it. The trap was set, and soon the galaxy would learn that humanity was not just another species to be conquered. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin. The Grand Armada of the Galactic Empire gathered at Nexus Station, the largest military base in known space. 10,000 warships floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. Fleet Admiral Vextar walked through the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems. He had commanded this vessel for 30 years and had never faced defeat. Today would be no different. Admiral, we are receiving the final ship counts, his aide reported. The young officer's voice trembled with excitement. 10,000 ships of the line, 2,000 support vessels, and 500 troop carriers. We have never assembled a force this large. Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries through strength and fear. These humans would learn what happened to species that challenged imperial authority. He looked out at the massive fleet through his command window and felt a surge of pride. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Jin Ho sat in a small room aboard a trading station. He looked like any other merchant, selling goods between worlds. But Jin Ho was actually humanity's best intelligence officer. For 5 years he had lived among the aliens, learning their secrets and sending information back to human command. His hidden communication device beeped softly. A message from Admiral Hyunwoo appeared on the screen. Report status of enemy fleet movements. Jin Ho typed his response quickly. Empire Grand Armada assembling at Nexus Station. Count confirmed at 10,000 combat ships. Fleet Admiral Vextar in command. They plan to move toward human space in 3 days. The message disappeared as soon as he sent it. Jin Ho closed his device and returned to his work. Around him, alien traders talked excitedly about the coming war. They all believed the Empire would crush the humans easily. None of them suspected that a human spy was sitting among them, gathering their secrets. Back on Earth, President Nari stood in the war room deep beneath the capital city. The room was filled with screens showing star maps and fleet positions. Military leaders from every human world were present, either in person or through holographic projection. The fate of humanity hung in the balance of their decisions. Admiral Hyunwoo, what is your assessment? She asked. The president was a calm woman who had led humanity through many crises. She had been elected to guide the human race through their expansion into space. But now she found herself preparing for the greatest war in galactic history. Admiral Hyunwoo's image appeared on the main screen. He was aboard his flagship somewhere in the outer territories. Madam President, the Empire is doing exactly what we expected. They are bringing their entire fleet to crush us with overwhelming force. This plays directly into our strategy. Our people are frightened, President Nari said. They have heard stories about the Empire's power. Some are asking if we should negotiate instead of fight. With respect, Madam President, negotiation is no longer possible. the Admiral replied. "The Empire sees us as insects to be stepped on. They will accept nothing less than our complete surrender and enslavement. We must fight and we must win." Dr. Yunji stepped forward from her position near the back of the room. Her quantum disruption technology had been installed on every human ship, but she knew that weapons alone would not win this war. "Admiral, our technology gives us an advantage, but the Empire still outnumbers us 10-1. Are you certain your plan will work?" Admiral Hyunwoo smiled grimly. "Doctor, we have been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Every human colony, every ship, every soldier knows their role. The Empire expects to fight us the old way, with massive fleets trading fire in open space, but we will not give them that kind of battle." At Nexus Station, Emperor Thalax arrived to inspect his Grand Armada. He stood on the observation deck of the command station, looking out at the thousands of ships under his command. Each vessel represented the power and glory of his empire. No force in galactic history had ever been this strong. "Your Majesty, the fleet is ready to depart," Fleet Admiral Vextar reported. "We have enough ships to conquer 100 human worlds simultaneously. This will be the shortest war in Imperial history." Emperor Thalax's 6 eyes glowed with satisfaction. "Send a message to the humans. Tell them they have one last chance to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy every human world and sell the survivors as slaves." The message was broadcast across human space within hours. Every human colony, every space station, every ship received the Emperor's ultimatum. The alien ruler gave humanity 48 hours to surrender unconditionally or face total annihilation. On the mining world of New Sol, colonist families gathered around communication screens to hear their government's response. The children hugged their parents as they listened to the Emperor's threats. Many were afraid, but they also felt something else, anger. These aliens thought they could frighten humans into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Captain So Young received the surrender demand while her ship was patrolling the outer rim. She read it aloud to her crew, her voice filled with contempt. "The Empire demands our complete surrender and the enslavement of our people. They give us 48 hours to comply." Her crew responded with angry shouts and curses. These men and women had joined the human fleet to protect their families and their freedom. The idea of bowing to alien tyrants filled them with rage. "Captain, what are our orders?" her tactical officer asked. Captain So Young smiled coldly. "We continue with the plan. Let the Empire come. We will be ready for them." Ambassador Rion worked frantically at the Imperial Court on Vorthak Prime. As humanity's secret diplomatic representative, she had spent years building relationships with alien officials. Now she was gathering final intelligence about the Empire's battle plans. "The Emperor is completely confident," she reported to Admiral Hyunwoo through an encrypted channel. "He believes this will be an easy victory. Fleet Admiral Vextar has ordered a direct assault on our core worlds. They plan to destroy Earth as an example to the rest of the galaxy." Admiral Hyunwoo received this news with satisfaction. The Empire's arrogance was their greatest weakness. They could not imagine that a younger, smaller species might have superior tactics and technology. This blindness would cost them everything. Across human space, colonial defense forces began their final preparations. On the surface, it looked like panic. Civilian ships fled from the outer worlds, carrying refugees toward the human core systems. Military bases seemed to be abandoning their positions. To outside observers, it appeared that humanity was collapsing in fear before the Empire's mighty fleet. But Colonel Tae-hyun knew the truth. As he watched evacuation ships leave his world, he smiled grimly. Every fleeing civilian was actually a trained volunteer, moving to predetermined positions. Every abandoned military base was rigged with surprises for the invading Empire forces. The retreat was carefully planned theater, designed to lure the enemy into a trap. The Grand Armada began its journey toward human space. 10,000 warships moved in perfect formation, their passage lighting up space like a river of stars. Imperial commanders were confident and eager for battle. They expected to crush the humans quickly and return home as heroes. None of them suspected that human spy satellites were tracking their every movement. None of them imagined that the fleeing humans were actually positioning themselves for the galaxy's greatest military ambush. The Empire was walking into a trap 50 years in the making, and they had no idea what was waiting for them in the darkness between the stars. The war that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization was about to begin. The Empire's Grand Armada crossed into human territory like a dark storm cloud moving across the sky. Fleet Admiral Vextar stood on his command bridge, watching the tactical displays as his scouts reported from ahead. What they found surprised him. "Admiral, the outer human colonies appear to be abandoned," his intelligence officer reported. "We are detecting minimal military presence and no significant defensive positions." Vextar frowned. He had expected fierce resistance at the border worlds. Instead, his forces were finding empty space stations and evacuated planets. "Are the humans fleeing already? Before we have even engaged them?" "It appears so, sir," the officer replied. "Our advanced scouts report long-range sensor contacts moving deeper into human space. It looks like a full retreat." The fleet admiral felt a mixture of disappointment and contempt. He had hoped for at least some sport from these upstart humans. Instead, they seemed to be running away like frightened children. Perhaps this war would be even easier than the Emperor had predicted. 20 light-years away, Admiral Hyunwoo received real-time reports from his hidden observation posts. The Empire fleet was advancing exactly as he had hoped. Their formation was tight and predictable, perfect for what he had planned. "Captain Jiwon, are your stealth ships in position?" he asked his reconnaissance commander. Captain Jiwon was one of humanity's most skilled pilots, able to keep her small ships invisible to enemy sensors. "Yes, Admiral," she replied through the secure channel. "We have eyes on the entire enemy formation. They are following the main hyperspace routes just as you predicted. No attempt at tactical maneuvering or surprise approaches." Admiral Hyunwoo smiled coldly. The Empire was making the same mistake that had doomed so many other galactic powers. They relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers instead of strategy and creativity. Against most enemies, this approach worked perfectly. Against humans, it would be their downfall. Lieutenant Da-un worked frantically at her station aboard the human command ship. She was young, barely 25 years old, but her mind processed tactical information faster than most military computers. Her job was to track every enemy ship and predict their movements. "Admiral, the Empire fleet is maintaining standard battle formation," she reported. "They have their heaviest ships in the center, surrounded by escorts and support vessels. Classic Imperial doctrine for overwhelming smaller forces." "Perfect," Admiral Hyunwoo replied. "They are thinking like they always have." "How long until they reach the Kepler system?" 18 hours at their current speed," Lieutenant Da-un answered. "That gives us enough time to position our final assets." The Kepler system looked empty to Imperial scouts. Its planets were barren worlds with no strategic value. The system's asteroid belt contained some mining stations, but they appeared abandoned like everything else in human space. It seemed like just another waypoint on the route to Earth. But hidden among those asteroids were humanity's most powerful weapons. Admiral Dong-hyun commanded a fleet of stealth warships, each one invisible to Imperial sensors. They had been waiting in this system for 3 years, preparing for this exact moment. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Quantum disruptors are charged and targeting systems are locked on the predicted enemy approach routes." Admiral Dong-hyun nodded grimly. His ships were smaller than the Imperial vessels, but they carried technology that the Empire had never seen. When the trap was sprung, the enemy would face weapons that could disable their shields and communications in seconds. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Commodore Zexhai began to feel uneasy about their easy advance. He had served in the Imperial Navy for 40 years and had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him something was wrong. "Fleet Admiral, request permission to deploy additional scouts," he said to Vextar. "The human retreat seems too convenient." "They are leading us somewhere." Vextar waved dismissively. "Commodore, you worry too much. The humans are clearly terrified of our superior force. They are running to their core worlds, hoping to make a final stand around Earth. It is exactly what any inferior species would do when faced with Imperial might." But Commodore Zexhai was not convinced. In his experience, humans were unpredictable. They did not follow standard military doctrine, and they were known for using unusual tactics. This systematic retreat felt too organized, too deliberate. Major Wu Jin prepared his marine assault forces aboard their transport ships. His soldiers were the best in the human military, trained for boarding actions and planetary assaults. But today they would not be attacking enemy positions. Instead, they would be defending key points in the trap Admiral Hyunwoo had prepared. "Major, we have confirmation that the Empire fleet is approaching the Kepler system," his communication officer reported. "Admiral Hyunwoo signals that Phase 1 will begin in 6 hours." Major Wu Jin checked his weapons one final time. His Marines carried advanced equipment that could cut through Imperial armor like paper. More importantly, they carried the determination to protect their families and their freedom. The Empire had made a terrible mistake by threatening humanity's children. Captain Seok-jin commanded the human stealth bomber wing hidden in the Kepler asteroid field. His ships were tiny compared to Imperial battleships, but they carried quantum torpedoes that could penetrate any known shield system. Each torpedo contained enough destructive power to cripple vessels 100 times larger than his bombers. "All wings report ready for attack," he announced to Admiral Dong-hyun. "We have firing solutions on the enemy flagship and primary battle line, waiting for your command." The hours passed slowly as the Empire's Grand Armada approached the trap. Imperial commanders grew more confident with each empty system they passed. The humans seemed to have completely abandoned their outer territories, fleeing toward their homeworlds in panic. Fleet Admiral Vextar called a conference with his senior officers. The holographic displays showed their projected route to Earth and the expected positions of remaining human forces. "Gentlemen, this campaign is proceeding better than we hoped," he announced. "The humans have shown themselves to be cowards, abandoning their colonies without a fight. When we reach Earth, they may surrender without forcing us to destroy their world." Admiral Kethmore raised a concern. "Sir, our intelligence estimates suggested the humans had at least 500 warships. We have encountered almost none of them. Where is their fleet?" "Probably hiding behind Earth's defenses," Vextar replied with contempt. "They hope their homeworld's orbital fortresses will protect them. They will learn that nothing can stand against Imperial firepower." But hidden among the asteroids of the Kepler system, thousands of human soldiers and spacers waited for the order to attack. They watched as the massive Imperial fleet approached, its ships gleaming in the light of the system's star. Soon those proud vessels would be burning wreckage floating in the void. Captain So-young received final targeting data from the reconnaissance ships. The Empire fleet was entering the kill zone exactly as planned. Every human commander knew their role and every weapon was ready to fire. "All units, this is Admiral Hyunwoo," came the voice over the secure communication channel. "The enemy is in position. Remember, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every species the Empire has enslaved. Today we show the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated. All ships prepare to engage. The trap was set. The Empire's mighty armada was sailing directly into the greatest military ambush in galactic history. In minutes, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. The age of Imperial dominance was about to end, and the age of human leadership was about to begin. The hunting season was open, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happened to predators who threatened the wrong prey. The first shots of the war came without warning. Captain Seok-jin's stealth bombers materialized from the asteroid field like deadly ghosts, their quantum torpedoes already racing toward the Empire's flagship. The Eternal Dominion's shields flared and died as Dr. Yoonji's disruption technology tore through their defensive systems. "What in the void was that?" Fleet Admiral Vextar shouted as his bridge shook from multiple impacts. Warning lights flashed red throughout the command center, and damage reports flooded in from across his ship. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," his sensor officer reported, his voice shaking with disbelief. "Hundreds of ships are decloaking around us. We're surrounded." Admiral Hyunwoo stood calmly on his bridge as chaos erupted around the Imperial fleet. His plan was unfolding perfectly. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. The Empire's arrogance had walked them directly into humanity's trap. "All units execute Pattern Alpha," he commanded. "Target their command ships first, then their carriers. Do not let any of them escape to report our true capabilities." Across the Kepler system, human warships emerged from hiding places among the asteroids. They had been waiting motionless for hours, their crews barely breathing as the massive Imperial fleet passed overhead. Now they struck with the fury of a thunderstorm. Captain So-young's ship, the Soul's Pride, opened fire on an Imperial heavy cruiser. Her quantum disruptors shut down the enemy's shields in seconds, while her plasma cannons tore through their hull plating like hot knives through butter. "Direct hit on their engine section," her weapons officer reported with satisfaction. "Enemy vessel is dead in space. Target the next ship in line," Captain So-young ordered. "Keep firing until they're all scrap metal." The Empire forces tried desperately to respond to the surprise attack. Admiral Kethmore aboard the Galactic Fist attempted to organize a defensive formation, but his communications were being jammed by human electronic warfare systems. All ships, Fall back to defensive position, Gamma, he broadcast on every available frequency. Reform the battle line and return fire. But his orders never reached most of his fleet. The humans had been studying Imperial communication systems for decades. They knew how to disrupt every channel, how to create confusion and panic among enemy commanders. Commander Seok Jin led his bomber wing on another attack run, this time targeting the Empire's carrier ships. These massive vessels held thousands of fighter craft that could overwhelm human defenses if they were allowed to launch. Bomber Group 2, follow my lead, he commanded as his small ship dove toward a carrier the size of a city. Hit their launch bays before they can deploy their fighters. The quantum torpedoes struck with devastating effect. The carrier's launch bays erupted in chains of explosions as fuel and ammunition stores went up in massive fireballs. Thousands of Imperial fighters died before they could even leave their ships. Lieutenant Da-Yoon tracked the battle from her position aboard Admiral Hyun-woo's flagship. Her screens showed the positions of every ship in the system, human and Imperial alike. The battle was going exactly as their computer simulations had predicted. Admiral, we've destroyed or disabled 30% of the enemy fleet, she reported. Their formation is breaking apart. Some ships are trying to retreat, but our outer perimeter is holding. Admiral Hyun-woo nodded with grim satisfaction. The Empire had brought 10,000 ships expecting an easy victory. Instead, they were being systematically destroyed by a force they had thought was fleeing in terror. Commodore Zexhai watched in horror as his squadron was torn apart by human weapons he had never seen before. Ships that had served the Empire for centuries were being reduced to burning wreckage in minutes. His own vessel, the Iron Talon, was barely holding together under repeated attacks. "Sir, we must retreat," his tactical officer begged. "These weapons are beyond anything in our database. The humans have technology we never knew existed." "The fleet admiral has not given the retreat order," Zexhai replied, though his voice shook with fear. "We must hold our position." But Fleet Admiral Vextar was in no condition to give orders. The Eternal Dominion was dying around him. Human precision strikes had targeted his ship's command systems, leaving him blind and nearly defenseless. Half his bridge crew was dead or wounded, and fires were spreading through multiple decks. "Admiral, we need to abandon ship," his aide urged. "The reactor core is becoming unstable. We have maybe 10 minutes before it goes critical." Vextar stared at the tactical display, watching his proud fleet being destroyed. In 30 years of service, he had never faced defeat. The idea that these primitive humans could destroy the Empire's greatest armada was impossible to accept. Captain Ji-won's reconnaissance ships darted through the battle zone like deadly insects. Her job was to identify Imperial command vessels and mark them for destruction. The human battle plan called for eliminating the Empire's leadership first, leaving their forces confused and directionless. "Target acquired," she reported as she spotted another Imperial flagship. "Admiral-class battleship, coordinates transmitting now." Within seconds, 3 human attack groups converged on the enemy vessel. Quantum disruptors shut down its shields while plasma cannons carved through its armor. The mighty battleship, which could have conquered entire star systems, died in less than a minute. Major Wu Jin's Marines were not idle during the space battle. They had been deployed to capture Imperial ships that survived the initial assault. His soldiers used advanced boarding pods to punch through enemy hulls and seize control of disabled vessels. "Boarding successful on Target 7, he reported as his team swept through an Imperial heavy cruiser. Crew surrendering. Ship's computer core secured for intelligence analysis. The captured Imperial officers stared at the human Marines in disbelief. These were supposed to be primitive aliens barely capable of spaceflight. Instead, they fought with equipment and tactics that made the Empire's best forces look like children playing war. As the battle continued, more human fleets emerged from hidden positions throughout the system. Admiral Dong Hyun brought his reserve force out of concealment, adding fresh ships to the attack. The Imperial forces found themselves facing enemies from every direction. "Admiral Vextar, respond please," Admiral Kethmore broadcast desperately. "We need new orders. The fleet is falling apart," but there was no response. The Eternal Dominion had finally succumbed to its damage, its reactor core exploding in a brief new sun. Fleet Admiral Vextar, who had conquered 100 worlds for the Empire, died without understanding how his invincible fleet had been defeated so completely. Emperor Thalax received news of the disaster while holding court on Vorthak Prime. The messenger, A surviving ship captain trembled as he delivered his report. "Your Majesty, the Grand Armada has been destroyed," he stammered. "The humans were waiting for us. They had weapons we have never seen before. Fleet Admiral Vextar is dead. Most of our ships are gone." The Emperor's 6 eyes blazed with fury and disbelief. "Impossible! 10,000 ships cannot be defeated by a handful of human vessels." "Your Majesty, it was not a handful," the captain replied. "There were thousands of them. They appeared from nowhere and tore us apart. These humans are not what we thought they were." In the Kepler system, Admiral Hyunwoo surveyed the battlefield. Burning Imperial ships drifted through space like fallen leaves. Of the Empire's mighty Grand Armada, less than 1,000 vessels remained, and most of those were surrendering or fleeing in panic. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from multiple enemy ships," Captain So Young reported. "What are your orders?" Admiral Hyunwoo considered for a moment. Humanity had won a great victory, but this was only the beginning. The Empire still controlled thousands of worlds and could rebuild their fleet. The war was far from over. "Accept their surrender, but keep them under heavy guard," he decided. "We'll need prisoners for intelligence and propaganda purposes. As for the ones trying to escape, let a few of them go. I want the Emperor to know exactly what happened here." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been enslaved by the Empire for centuries heard the impossible news. The invincible Imperial fleet had been destroyed. For the first time in generations, hope flickered in the hearts of the oppressed. The galaxy was about to change forever. The news of the Grand Armada's destruction reached every corner of the galaxy within days. On 1,000 worlds, species that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries looked up at the stars with new hope. The impossible had happened. The Galactic Empire's greatest fleet lay in ruins, destroyed by the humans they had dismissed as primitive newcomers. Emperor Thalax stood alone in his throne room, staring at reports that made no sense. His military advisors were dead or missing. His greatest admirals had perished with their ships. The empire that had seemed eternal was crumbling around him. "Your Majesty," General Kale entered the hall, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. "The outer territories are in revolt. 17 systems have declared independence in the past day alone. Our remaining fleets are scattered and demoralized." The Emperor's claws scraped against his throne. For the first time in his 300-year reign, he felt the cold touch of fear. "How many ships do we have left?" "Perhaps 3,000 combat vessels throughout the entire empire," General Kale replied. "Most are second-line ships or local defense forces. The humans destroyed our best units in a single battle." On Earth, President Nari addressed the human people from the same war room where she had authorized the greatest military operation in galactic history. Her words were carried to every human colony, every ship, every outpost in space. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they had accomplished. "Today marks not just a victory in battle, but the dawn of a new age for our species and for all free peoples of the galaxy." Admiral Hyunwoo stood beside her, still wearing his battle uniform. The man who had planned and executed the destruction of the Imperial fleet looked tired, but determined. His work was not finished. "The Empire's reign of terror is ending," President Nari continued. "But we do not seek to replace one tyrant with another. We offer something the galaxy has never known. A federation based on cooperation, not domination. A union where every species has a voice. Across human space, celebrations erupted on every world. Families who had lived in fear of Imperial retaliation danced in the streets. Children who had grown up hearing stories of alien oppression now dreamed of exploring a galaxy where humans were respected and feared. But Admiral Hyunwoo knew the war was not over. The Empire still controlled thousands of worlds and billions of soldiers. Emperor Thalax would not surrender easily, and a cornered predator was the most dangerous kind. "Admiral Dong Hyun, what is the status of our fleets?" he asked his second-in-command during their first post-battle briefing. "We suffered lighter casualties than projected," Admiral Dong Hyun replied. "We lost only 200 ships out of our attacking force of 3,000. Our technological advantage was even greater than Dr. Yoonji predicted." Dr. Yoonji herself looked satisfied but not surprised. She had spent 20 years perfecting humanity's quantum disruption technology, and the battle had proven its effectiveness beyond question. "Admiral, the captured Imperial ships contain enough technological data to keep our research teams busy for decades. We may be able to adapt some of their systems to our own use." The first breakthrough came when Commander Jin Ho, humanity's master spy, made contact with rebel leaders throughout Imperial space. Species that had been enslaved for generations were rising up, inspired by humanity's victory. "Admiral, I'm receiving communications from rebel groups on 47 worlds," he reported. "They're requesting human military support for their liberation movements. Some are offering to join our Federation immediately." Admiral Hyunwoo studied the star map showing rebel activity. The Empire's territory was fracturing like a broken mirror, with independence movements sprouting on worlds that had been quiet for centuries. "We cannot support every rebellion directly," he decided, "but we can provide weapons, training, and intelligence. Let the Empire's own subjects tear it apart from within." Captain Minji commanded the first humanitarian mission to former Imperial territory. Her ships carried not weapons but food, medicine, and hope to species that had suffered under alien rule. When her fleet arrived at the Zolonian homeworld, she found a people desperate for freedom. "Admiral, the conditions here are worse than we imagined," she reported. "The Empire has been strip mining their world for decades. The population is barely surviving on starvation rations." The images that Captain Minji transmitted back to human space shocked even hardened military officers. The Empire had not just conquered other species, they had systematically destroyed their cultures, their environments, and their hope. "Provide whatever aid they need," Admiral Hyunwoo ordered, "and make sure every species in the galaxy sees what we're doing. Let them know that humans offer protection, not exploitation." Emperor Thalax's rage grew as he watched his empire dissolve. World after world declared independence or joined the growing human alliance. His remaining military commanders were afraid to engage human forces, having heard the stories of the Grand Armada's destruction. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiation," suggested Admiral Zalthus, one of the few senior officers to survive the Kepler system battle. "The humans appear willing to accept surrender and offer reasonable terms." The Emperor's 6 eyes glowed with fury. "Never. I will not bow to these upstart primitives. Gather what ships we have left. We will make our stand at the capital. Let the humans come. They will find the homeworld of the Empire is not so easy to conquer." But Admiral Zalthus was already having doubts about his Emperor's leadership. The old ways of thinking had led to catastrophic defeat. Perhaps it was time for new leadership in what remained of the Empire. Admiral Hyunwoo received reports of the Emperor's defiance with grim satisfaction. He had hoped the alien ruler would see reason and surrender peacefully. Instead, Thalax was preparing for a final battle that would only bring more destruction to his own people. "Colonel Taehyun, how are our ground forces?" he asked his army commander. If the Emperor wanted a fight, humanity would give him one he would never forget. "Ready for planetary assault operations," Colonel Taehyun replied. "Our Marines are equipped with the latest combat gear, and we have transport for 2 million soldiers. More importantly, we have detailed intelligence on Imperial defenses, courtesy of our new alien allies." The final phase of the war began when Admiral Hyunwoo's fleets entered the Imperial core systems. They found not a united empire ready for battle, but a collection of frightened worlds whose populations were already in revolt against their rulers. On Vorthak Prime, Emperor Thalax watched from his palace as human ships appeared in his system. But they were not alone. Ships from dozens of species flew beside them, former Imperial subjects who had joined humanity's cause. "Your Majesty, incoming transmission from the human fleet," his communication officer reported, his voice barely a whisper. "Put it through," the Emperor commanded. Admiral Hyunwoo's face appeared on the main screen, calm and determined. "Emperor Thalax, I am Admiral Hyunwoo of the Human Federation. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now and we will guarantee the safety of your people." "I will never surrender to you," the Emperor screamed. "The Empire is eternal. We will fight to the last ship, the last soldier." Admiral Hyunwoo's expression did not change. "As you wish. But know this, the age of Imperial tyranny is over. The galaxy belongs to free peoples now." The battle for Vorthak Prime lasted only 6 hours. The Emperor's remaining fleet, demoralized and outnumbered, crumbled under the combined assault of human ships and their alien allies. Many Imperial vessels surrendered without firing a shot, their crews unwilling to die for a lost cause. Emperor Thalax himself refused to surrender even when his palace was surrounded. He died fighting human marines in his throne room, his last words a curse against the species that had destroyed his empire. Admiral Zalthes became the new leader of what remained of the imperial government. His first act was to formally surrender to Admiral Hyunwoo and request membership in the Human Federation. "Admiral, on behalf of my people, I apologize for the crimes of the Empire," he said during the surrender ceremony. "We wish to make amends and join your alliance as equals, not as conquerors." Admiral Hyunwoo accepted the surrender with dignity. "The Human Federation welcomes all species who embrace freedom and cooperation. The past is past. What matters now is building a better future together." President Nari's dream of a galactic federation became reality faster than anyone had imagined. Within a year of the Kepler system battle, over 1,000 worlds had joined the Human Federation. Species that had been enemies for millennia found common ground in their shared desire for freedom. The galaxy had been transformed. Where once the Empire had ruled through fear and oppression, the Human Federation governed through consent and cooperation. It was not a perfect system, but it was a better one. Admiral Hyunwoo, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Federation forces, looked out at the stars from his flagship. Humanity had risen from a small species on the galactic rim to the leaders of the greatest alliance in known space. But he knew their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Other threats existed beyond the old Empire's borders. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. Humanity would need to remain strong, united and vigilant to protect the freedom they had won.